Hi, everybody. So, we are a couple of days away from a very magical day. Yeah, October 18th. October 18th is an exceptionally magical day because Mars and Venus will be in a trine. That's right. Venus is in Libra right now, and she is starting to form a trine to Mars in Gemini. This is going to be a day where ideas, because we're looking at air signs, so concepts and ideas, they're really able to be realized very simply. So if you're in a problem-solving mode, like let go and relax because the answers are about to appear. Hi, I'm going to give a free talk about this to my patrons on Friday. So if you're not a patron, you can join my Patreon, and all of my patrons are going to get some special information about how to navigate that Venus-Mars trine. Because a lot of times people think they need to do something with a trine, and if you work too hard, you might actually miss the magic. Because, magic happens in our everyday mundane lives. It really does. And most people miss it because they're waiting for that big thing to happen. But often the most magical things are really quiet. They're really quiet. And there'll just be that little subtle hint or a little, a whiff on the air, something. And it's not like dramatic things can't happen, because they do. But there's some real magic coming on the 18th, and everybody can take advantage of that. Even if those planets are squaring personal planets, that trine is still very magic, and it can help relieve some frustration. And it's almost like the universe gives us these little kind of special days to help us through some of these really kind of crunchy times, because seriously, it's heavy, right? It's been heavy. Now, the heaviness should be reducing as we move through the rest of the year. That heaviness we've all felt through September and this up till now in October, because that Saturn-Uranus square was just a lot, right? It was just a lot. So that heaviness will start to reduce. But there's other stuff, right? Because, there's always other stuff. But we get these little magical moments. And so that's what I'm hoping to help you guys navigate on Friday. You're an air sign, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. That energy on the 18th is just going to be really nice. I'm looking forward to it because my moon is in Libra, and that happens really, really close to my moon. So I'm like, ooh, I think it's going to be really, really good. So, and I'm talking about personal natal astrology. I'm not talking about mundane astrology. Mundane astrology, I think some other stuff is going to happen. There's always stuff happening in the world, though, right? There always is. There always has been. There always will be. So, but there's some real magic coming up. And I love these moments because this is like when you guys are like, don't you ever tell me any good news? Well, here's some good news. It'll be pleasant. It'll be pleasant. So yeah, for the Libras and the Geminis, this is great energy. Aquarians get some good stuff out of this too. Because again, it's going to be making trines, especially, again, this is going to happen at 23 degrees. So anything on 8 degrees of that. Okay, so anything on 8 degrees. Remember, we do a lot of math in astrology, and I know there's some popular astrologers out there that kind of claim that these aspects happen like the minute a planet enters the sign, and it doesn't work that way, So this will be 8 degrees of 23, either before or after. We'll feel it the strongest, but everybody has those kind of points in their chart, and everybody will get a little bit of magic. It's like a little universal treat. If I commented, I would have commented, I don't know. I don't remember do you know how much I do here? I don't remember what I comment on. It's like, I was going to answer that, and then I'm like, I freaking don't know. I create a lot of content, and I actually comment on a lot of videos. So I don't know. I barely know what day it is. No. I have a 21 degree Libra moon. So, and that whole 18 and 22 degrees, fuck that shit. It's not real. It's shitty astrology, and it's making it fit. And I'll die on that hill. I will. I hate anything like that because degrees are navigational. They're not divinational. So, like, I stop giving scientists reasons to trash us already, you know? So, but yeah. Spica. It's not 20 degrees. It's 21 degrees is Spica. It's a fixed star. Yeah. Spica. But no, I did not comment on a fixed star. I tend to block most astrology accounts just because I like to run my own race. It's not because I don't support other people. I follow a couple people, but in general, I don't. It's too easy for me to get cranky or start teaching and correcting people. So I just block it. So I just keep my blinders on and do my thing. So, but yeah, Spike is the fixed star at 21 degrees. So yeah. We're moon twins. We're moon twins, Michelle. What's happening with the magical day? That's October 18th when Venus and Mars are trine. This is really easy energy. So you don't really have to do anything with it. You just get a benefit from it. It's kind of like a universal treat, you know. So if you've had ideas, if you've had kind of wonderings, you might have a little manifestation, you might have just something just kind of show up. It might be the day the birds are all talking to you. You know, everybody has a different way that's going to express, but just understand it's going to be like a pleasant moment, a pleasant time. And in all this heaviness, isn't that a gift? In all the uncertainty and all the heaviness, isn't it a gift to have just a moment that's pleasant? You know, to me, that's super cool. Now, again, if you've got a Libra second house or a Gemini second house, that could be financially good. So I'm going to be talking about this for my patrons. It's my little gift and treat to my patrons for being patient with me on Friday night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. I do it earlier, but I got readings. So I'm going to give a little chat and talk about how people can maximize that energy, like to be aware of it. Because that's 90% of the stuff you miss is because you're up here. I was just doing a spiritual coaching session today, and the person felt like they were in a house, you know, like a hall of mirrors, because they were right up here. They're right up here. So I was working with them to step it back, you know, get out of here. Stop trying to problem solve and look for solutions. And solutions don't come from thinking. Solutions come when we relax and we're like, okay, what's the solution? Notice like, oh, I have this problem, I have to sort it out, to what's the solution? These lines here, they came honestly. Not only is it from squinting because I can't see, but it was also, I used to stay too much up here problem solving, and it took a long time for me to learn how to like seek solution instead of always looking at the problem. And that's 90% of people. They're looking at the problem because that's what we've been trained to do, right? Instead of find solutions. And there's always a solution to be found. We may not like the solution, but there's always a solution to be found. And we miss those moments when we miss the magic. So there's some really beautiful magic coming up. Beautiful. It'll be beautiful energy. So yeah. Yeah. And even if you feel a little frustrated in it, you'd be like, oh my God, where's my magic? Did you notice the little play of lights in the sky? Did you notice that there'll be something that's inspiring? You know, that's magic too. Everybody's always looking for the big stuff, but the big stuff is always made up of a bunch of little things. You know, just like, you know, particles, you know, protons and neutrinos and quarks, you know, the subparticles make the particles, and the particles make the atoms, and the atoms make the molecules. Well, magic works like that too. The little things make the big things. And when we're always looking for that big event, it's almost like being an adrenaline junkie instead of stepping back and just appreciating those little things. So that's something I'm looking forward to. But yeah. Yeah, the 4 headlines, yeah, they come from thinking. And I refuse to get Botox. I earned these from overthinking. But yeah. Is this in response to the current... I don't even know what your question means, current state of the stars. What inspired me to become an astrology expert? Well, I'm a little more than like an expert in that I teach, so I can see what you mean. Astrology found me, and I'm already very intuitive. I was very resistant to that. I was very resistant to, like, woo-woo has always happened to me. And in fact, always big things. Like the stuff most people are looking for are things that would happen to me. And I'd be like, that's crazy. I don't want it. And astrology just felt safer. Like I was going to debunk it, but astrology felt safer in that there was a lot of math. And it's like I could qualify it in the world versus, hey, I just saw a 7-foot tall light being and it had a message for the world. That shit's happened to me too, but that makes you sound like batshit crazy, right? And so I was very, very hesitant in my 20s to ever talk about any of my metaphysical abilities, which I believe everybody has. Everybody's intuitive, everybody's psychic to some degree. And now you can get training on that to make it better. And so astrology gave me a way I could explain things in a way that didn't make me look crazy. And I'm a very scientifically minded person as well. Like I was already weird enough. So astrology just seemed like a less weird thing. That was my logic in my 20s. And it is exceptionally accurate, and I loved that. So as I get older, I'm a lot more comfortable talking about the metaphysical things that have both happened to me, and that's more like my inner circle stuff. You can tell, I'm a little embarrassed about it sometimes. I'm like, yeah, things show up, and things happen, and if it's weird, it happens to me. And I have 0 clinical markers. I know I had myself tested. So what does that mean? That means I'm not crazy. So yeah, I even have pieces of paper and everything. And because I was like, before I go public with this, I'd really like proof, So yeah, so there's that. So yeah, I'll be doing more intuitive work coming up. I've contemplated on my own astrology chart. So I have the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. So that was one of the reasons why I kind of shied away from being obviously metaphysical, It also wasn't safe at certain points and in certain places in my life as well. So, it's safer than it ever has been for now. So that's what made me do it. And then just the accuracy of actual real astrology. It is amazing. Like how every single time it's on point. Now, I'm not talking about pop astrology because pop astrology is bullshit. That's where they're trying to force square pegs into round holes and say every single Aries is like this and every single Taurus is like this and all Scorpio risings are like all Leo, right? And I addressed some of that in some videos today if you want to go watch those. It's funny, my educational videos never do as well because, God forbid, the algorithm actually help teach people the real thing instead of pushing the bullshit. So thank you for the question. That's really, it was the accuracy, and it helped me understand myself in ways that I couldn't understand in any other way. And I wanted to help other people. So I get no greater joy out of showing people how valuable they are. I think there are so many messages in this world that tell you how you're lacking, you're not good enough, you're not thin enough, you're not the right color, you're not the right shape, you don't work hard enough, you work too hard, you drink the wrong thing, you eat the wrong, geez. And that's all, it's all oppression, and if you could read charts and you saw my chart, you'd see I'm like a little liberation front leader. If I can liberate people into understanding how very precious you are, that you had a 1 in 400 trillion chance, 1 in 400 trillion chance of being human. That automatically makes you valuable. You don't have to make anything. You don't have to produce anything. You don't have to. All of that is a lie. And that's what Pluto in Capricorn is actually destroying right now, is the postmodern industrial bullshit. And so it's up on deck. That's why people feel guilty for taking rest. And that's why people feel guilty for taking time for them. Me too. We're all subjected to this. And so why did I become an astrologer? It kept my mind busy. It was something that I found very accurate when you do the real studies. And I love teaching people and showing them how very unique and priceless you are. Like, it's not being nice. It's not. I think for our world to be habitable, I think for our future, people need to understand how valuable they are, instead of always looking at, like, we get this original sin concept that's been passed. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. It's been passed through, and all these old myths, and everybody's looking for vengeance and pettiness. And we've got to work together if we're going to get through this in any way that is somewhat comfortable. And the best way I can think of doing that is by showing people what's precious about them, and helping them know their strengths. And that's what I do. That's what I do every single day. I am a full-time practicing astrologer. I'm either forecasting predictions to give people a heads up, or I'm helping people understand themselves in sessions with me, or teaching people astrology so they can understand themselves and go along that study if it interests them, or working with my apprentices who, some have graduated from the apprenticeship, and they go to the next level. So they're with me, so they get support, but they're remarkable astrologers, every single one. They've passed the student phase. Apprentice doesn't mean student. They're gaining experience. They're getting experience points. They're rolling the dice. And I'm their modifier in case they roll a 5. I'm there to help them through their learning curves. I didn't get that as a young astrologer. I had some teachers. I had very fine teachers, but I didn't have any mentors. And so mentoring people is really important to me, to give people that solid base. It's so important. So we got McDubs. I see a McDubs. She's my first pancake. And we got a Casey. Come on, mods, check in. It's October. It's spooky season. Right? This light is too bright. Hang on. That's as low as I can get it. I like the purple look though. See, aren't the purple looks kind of cool? There we go. So I could do an invert, but I didn't know where to find it. I'd have to look again. But yeah. So sit down for a spell. Wah-ah-ah. And Mortimer. Can you see? Oh, Mortimer's over here. There's Mortimer. Mortimer the Crow. All the witches love me. Right? It shows up better in my readings. So I've also given word out to the neighborhood kids that I have full-size candy bars for Halloween. Because, hello. But yeah, hey guys, much love. Hey Sethi, how are you? Yeah, so we've got a lot coming up. If you're a patron, go read your email. It has your invitation to Friday's talk, where I'm going to talk about how to make use of the Venus-Mars trine. That's just really magical energy. It's very pleasant. So yeah. Right? I'm the awesome grown-up. I love kids. I do. I don't want to raise anymore. I did mine too, but yeah. Playing hard with the trick-or-treaters. Absolutely. That's right. I'm like, hey, because one of them came by my house like the other day, like, can I take out your garbage for 50 cents? I'm like, oh man, I already took my garbage, but be back at Halloween. I got full-size candy bars. I did my Costco run, and if they don't come get them, I will eat them. So I don't expect a ton, but yeah, you never know. Watch, everybody shows up. But yeah, right? Can I tell you about my unexplainable experiences? I don't have any unexplainable experiences. I have experiences that are really weird, but I can kind of explain them all. You mean like, so very, very metaphysical? Well, I think when you have to be observant. From the time I was a very little girl, I could always see and feel and hear. I was very, very sensitive to the world around me. It's one of the reasons I get cranky. That's me being a very sensitive person. A lot of times when you see cranky people, they're actually very sensitive people. And so I could feel the world around me, and I realized really early on that sometimes, like when adults were laughing and joking, they weren't happy, and I could feel that in them. And so, like, if we were at, like, that's why I don't like to go to concerts. I don't like to be in most bars. There's some bars I don't mind, but most I don't like the feel. I cannot stand Las Vegas at all. Like, I cannot. The energy there is just, I have myself in a bubble, and I always joke that I could sit with my boobs hanging out in Las Vegas and nobody would come near me because my bubble is so big. It's like I don't exist because I'm just like, shields. Because the desperation and the sadness and the self-loathing and the self-incrimination, it hurts. It physically hurts me. So I learned that as a young toddler. Like, I knew when people weren't emotionally honest. And that confused me. Like, they'd be laughing, but you could tell they were sad. And I didn't understand that side of it. As I got older, like, my guides were always around. I could feel them. I could see them until my mom told me not to because my imaginary friends freaked her out. So I was a very dutiful child and went, okay. But she didn't tell me I couldn't hear them or pay attention. And when I say hear, no, they never said like full sentences in my ears. They weren't like, Laurie, go to the store. That was never it. When I say listen, if you guys like follow other like mediums or psychics, that the information is very subtle. It'll be like, you should go to the library. Like, just this thought pops in your head, like a picture of the library, and you're like, oh, I should go to the library, and so when I would go into the library, especially when I got into reading grown-up books at about 9, because I learned to read it too. So I was one of those kind of weird smart kids. And I preferred living in books. When I got to the grown-up section, there would just be this like magnetism to certain books, like an outline of that. And it would be like, I always call it the Eat at Joe's sign, if that makes sense. If you ever saw the cartoons where it said Eat at Joe's, there'd be this illumination, almost like a light around it. Not quite a light, not quite an aura, which I could always see auras too. I have a funny story about that. I'll come back to it. But like books would stand out. So I was reading metaphysical, theosophical literature as a 9-10-year-old, whether it was Steiner or Ledbetter, all these old books, because it was an old library. And I was getting quite a primer, for those things. That was just it. And then I would have occasionally a vision, because I did go to church with my great grandma. I used to see doves on the regular. And nobody else could see them. So I learned really quickly not to say anything. I just knew stuff. And I just learned to say I read it in a book, because odds were I might have. So that's why I kind of studied astrology. Like I said, it's less weird. And it's very vulnerable to when people want you to always defend yourself. So if well, I can't explain how I know that. They'll be like, you have to know. And so, it's just so much easier as a little kid to say, I read it in a book. I don't remember which book it was, but I read it. And then adults would be like, oh, okay, you read it in a book. That's fine. Because you have to remember, metaphysical stuff was not okay in the 1970s, unless you were like in the hippie crowd, and I was not raised around that. And then as a teenager, I had some very interesting experiences, especially when I went to Europe. So, yeah. Like when I was a exchange student, and my host mom was actually related to Eleanor Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt, because they were actually related. Good times and cousins. And I got to hold letters from Eleanor Roosevelt to her. Her name was Countess Gabrielle de Lanois. She was really old. She drove Red Cross trucks through battlefields in World War II. She was a really interesting lady. And she took me on a road trip to France, to Brittany and Normandy, over the 4th of July. It was very cool. That part was very cool. I did not want to be living with an old lady when I was 15, though. When I went to Europe as an exchange student, I really wanted to live with a young family with a cute boy in it. That did not happen. Probably for the best. But I did not, I would love to tell you I was mature enough to really enjoy the adventure, but I didn't. I did and I didn't. But when we were in France, maybe I can make this a spooky story because it is kind of spooky. So when we were in France and we were actually heading back to Belgium, where she was from, we stopped in the city of Rouen, or Rouen. Okay. And my knowledge of history was okay, but I wasn't exactly thinking about it at the time. Again, I was getting ready to turn 16, and I was just really kind of soaking in all the things around me, and my French wasn't great. I was having to pick it up pretty fast. So as we were going through the old city center, and there were all these cool medieval buildings and things, all of a sudden I started to cough, and there was smoke all around me, and I was just like, my eyes were watering and burning from this really acrid smoke. And my dad was a firefighter, and so I'm looking around, there's no sirens, there's no nothing, and I'm hacking and coughing and barely breathe. And I look at Tante Gabby, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why are you not coughing? And she said, because there's no reason to. What's going on? And she asked me, are you having an allergic reaction? I was like, no, there's smoke everywhere. There's smoke everywhere. And I'm just like waving in the air. I look like a crazy person. So again, there's a reason I went with astrology, because it's much easier. It's math, right? I don't have to explain myself. But Tante Gabby, luckily, was of that age into the spiritual movement, the spiritualism. And we were literally standing feet away from where Joan of Arc had been burned at the stake, basically. And so what I smelled was smoldering hay, which is how a lot of times they put that on the pyres. It made me study other things, and it was almost like being part of the crowd, and it was just really surreal, and it scared the shit out of me. I was 15, so to have that happen just out of nowhere was really something. Yeah. And that was when, and that was really freaky. It did make me study into it. I was like, well, is that the truth? Is that, and you always think of people burned at the stake died from fire. They didn't. They died from smoke inhalation. I don't believe I had been her, or my soul expressed as her, but it was interesting. I had always been fascinated about her, and then it clicked, because Tante Gabby was like, well, that's where she was burned, and I was like, oh, well, that would explain the smell of smoke. Why did that happen in that moment? I don't know. Sometimes you just have things happen that get your attention. And in my experience, my North Node is Pisces, so some of what I am supposed to do, or part of my path in this life, is allow myself to be intuitive and psychic. And of course, my South Node in Virgo is like, no, we're not going to be weird. We're not going to be different. And so I kind of kept that very, very hush-hush. Tante Gabby thought it was great. She told all her friends. I was mortified. They were like, oh my gosh, this sensitive little girl. Yeah, they brought me to the psychics, and I was just like, oh, no. And then the universal keep turning up the volume. And so I did have some remarkable experiences that interested me, and our souls always, in my understanding, okay? Anybody who says they have all the answers is lying. But in my experience, in my understanding, our souls will make use of any experience to get our attention, to have us work on our path. Like, we're never really off our path. There's a faster route and a slower route, but our souls will use every single experience. And I think a lot of times what people think of as soul is they're thinking of like your spirit or your animating force. That gets beat up and bruised. Our soul is it's eternal. It's squeaky clean. It never gets sullied. Okay. In my experience, I think most people are operating off the Catholic Church's definitions, and they are not the arbiter of universal truth. They're just not. They're just not. I know they get claimed as, but they're not. They're no more the arbiters of universal truth than any other organization. They're just not. And they've done a lot of damage too. Yeah. So anyway, when I went to college in England, because I did not want to be in the States. I was from a little town in Oregon. I didn't like living there. Oregon is gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. I love the land and I love everything around. I've always been very in tune with nature. That's another thing. Like, just always very good at talking to animals. In fact, that's what made me become an astrologer. Was my teacher. He was in Australia. I was in the country of Bahrain. This was over email. And he sent, he'd written out a long report about my chart, explaining it the first time. And in that letter, he said, I want to teach you astrology. You were born to be one. And he was right. But it was when he asked, can you talk to animals? I don't tell people I can. Again, it's weird. But I don't just telepathically communicate. I can speak to them. And they speak back. And they always have. And I was like, how could he know that? He's nowhere near me. And that fascinated me. And it was one of my Neptune aspects. And I was just like, oh, okay, there's something to this, because there's no way he could have known. We didn't even have digital footprints back in 1995, So that's what made me study astrology. And he picked up, and he wouldn't let me be intuitive with the astrology. I had to do the math. He'd be like, you're psychic, stop it. Don't do that. Show me the math. And so, do the astrology. And that was a very good discipline, So that is some of that. Other things that happened, in fact, I told John Edward, the psychic, when I got to meet him on Sunday, we had coffee. We had some interesting things. We're about the same age. I'm a little older. We had some stuff happen at similar times in our lives. And one of my weird stories is when I was a college student in London, and I was a baroque, okay? I was overloaded on credits and broke as a church mouse. My family didn't want me there, and so they made it very difficult for me to be there. And so I was on my own. And I was very young. I got there at 18 and a half. That half was very important to me. Because people are like, you're really young. I'm like, I'm 18 and a half. I know what I'm doing. She did not know what she was doing. But that's okay. So one of the things I've always been able to do is sing. And so I was a classically trained singer. And I'd done show tunes or Broadway type stuff. And so I would busk. in Covent Garden. And I was on my way, and busking is where you sing for money, right? So this was me making up, because I worked 2 jobs under the table, but I still always broke. So I was walking from Leicester Square to Covent Garden, and all of a sudden this brick alleyway caught my attention on my left side. Remember, I'm blind on my left side, so anytime anything catches my attention on this side, I pay attention. It's usually metaphysical. And even back then, even if I didn't want to admit it, I knew it was usually something important. And that's how I labeled I wouldn't say metaphysical or spiritual or soul-centered or any of that when I was young. I would just say it was important. Like, that was just important. My brain was perceiving important things because, again, I was resisting metaphysics or magic, right? And so something caught my attention. It was a brick alleyway, and all of the windows that were visible had little lace curtains and little geranium flower boxes. Well, in Holland, that's normal. In London, not so much, especially that part of London. I was like, what's down that road? Now, remember, I told you, for the Venus trine Mars, it's a magical moment, and it'll probably be quiet, a lot like that. This thing catches your attention. You're like, what's down that road? That's your intuition, guys. I have a whole guide linked up in my bio on understanding the difference between your instinct and your intuition. So that what's down that road, that curiosity, that inspiration. So, of course, I went down that road. And it felt kind of cool. And it kind of felt like Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. And of course, Angela Lansbury transitioned the other day. But if you've never seen Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, you must watch it. It's a magical movie. And it wasn't Portobello Road, because I'd been to Portobello Road. It was Marlborough Road. But it kind of felt like in that movie. And so I was singing like, Portobello Road, Portobello Road. Da, 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 da. It was going down the road. And right, best movie, right? And all of a sudden, almost at the very end of this alley, because it was a road, but it was an alleyway, there was a purple building, like that color of purple. And above it, it said mysteries. Hello. A purple building in London? That never happened. Mysteries? Scorpio rising? I'm in, right? So I go in, but also remember, I was very well churched, so I was very resistant. That was part of the resistance, but I'd also studied a lot of metaphysical work. Didn't call it that. Called it philosophy. Very resistant to this path, let me tell you. And there's nothing wrong. That's part of our experience, is being, it's like a tug. It's like a tug, where you're playing tug of war. We have that resistance, right? So my resistance was to looking weird. I really wanted to look normal. Good luck with that, Laurie. Really wanted to look normal. Good luck with that. I don't get to look normal. So I walk into Mysteries, and the one thing I had always done was kept myself above reproach, because that was my response to trauma. Because nobody takes a one-way ticket to another country unless there's something not happy at home, right? And my home life was so traumatic that psychologists have cried. World-class psychologists have cried. It's the other reason I got myself tested before I ever went public. 0 clinical markers. I'm not a crazy person. I swear it. So, and you can also never tell me anything that's too weird. Like, you tell me a weird thing, I'll be like, okay. Like, alrighty. And so I walk in, and there's all these, what I would have considered, been raised to believe was like bad books, the very dark stuff. I don't believe it's bad necessarily. I think your intent is everything. I think it's experience. And my understanding is, if I chose that path, I still would have met my soul's intent. Like, it wasn't like I did have a defining moment at that time, but it would have been no harm, no foul. It might have been more bumpy and more painful to take that route than the route I took, but I still would have met my soul's intent regardless of which direction. And I think that's something we really need to understand, is we overjudge things, and it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to want to get even, and it's okay to have resentment. They're not healthy for us long term, but it's really okay. It's very normal, and it's very natural, especially when we've been very, very hurt. Okay. So at that time, I tend to have very cheesy experiences. Maybe it's all the science fiction I read as a kid, all the fantasy books I read as a kid, but I tend to have when I have a metaphysical experience, it tends to be really cheesy. And so on one of my shoulders, it felt a little heavy, and on the other, it felt a little light. And it was almost like the angel and devil scene, where it's like, you want those, you want power, you want to destroy them all. And it was like, oh yeah, I want to take those fuckers out. It was like, they hurt me so bad. Yes. And then literally the other side didn't argue. It just went, oh, what's on that bookshelf? And it was literally a squirrel moment, like squirrel. It was like, what's on that bookshelf? And I turned over my right shoulder, and bathed in light was this other bookcase. And there was a little teeny tiny book about this big with a really narrow spine. And it just got my attention. Now, it was on a full bookcase. Remember, I've always been blind. My eyes were better then than they are now, but I am myopic as anything. But that little teeny tiny book caught my attention more than the other things did. And I went to go see what it was, because I couldn't read what it was. And I went over, and it was Shakti Kawain's Creative Visualization. And that is literally one of the books I love recommending to people, because It is a really powerful little book, and I swear to God, it saved my life. Shaki passed away in 2018. I was able to thank her before that. She ended up on Facebook, and she was never self-promotional. This was a best-selling book for many years. She wrote it in the 1970s. You can still find it today. It's still in print. She was a very kind and generous person. She did not like attention. She did not want to be seen as a guru. And that book literally, I swear to God, saved my life. And that store became my go-to, and that's where I got my first set of tarot cards. And reading tarot scared the crap out of me because it was super accurate. And I just didn't have it. You remember that book? It's a beautiful book. I highly suggest it to people. I still use the exercises in that book all the time. It is a beautiful book. And, you know, I thanked her. I think it's always good to thank people who've done something for us, even if they didn't intend it for us directly. So I often write to authors, and she actually responded. So, that was a really neat thing. And then she transitioned not long after that. So I don't always get to speak to the people who made a difference in my life. You know, there's been many, whether they knew it or not. So, yeah. What's the name of the book? Creative Visualization. Creative Visualization. It was written in the 70s. It is a beautiful book. Beautiful book. Yeah. So, yeah. Yep, by Shaki Gawain. Thank you, McDubs. So, yeah. There we go. Just because your birthday is on the day of the solar eclipse doesn't mean that the solar eclipse is part of your solar return. Your solar return can actually be the day before your birthday. It's when the sun returns exactly to the degree and minute it was when you were born. So that's just a new start energy. The eclipse is not visible in the United States, so just treat it like a super new moon. So, it's a new start. So for everyday people, those eclipses don't matter as much. The one I actually have my eyes on is the lunar eclipse. I think that lunar eclipse is going to pack quite a punch. And that's, I've got a seminar that I'll be doing the Saturday before the solar eclipse. So you guys can check that out, linked up in my bio. I've already done it once. I did it in September, but I'm going to do it again for people who missed out on it. If you're a patron, hold tight. I'll have a special discount code for you. Everybody else, if you want to use a TikTok discount code, mods, can you put the save 20% in the chat? That would be useful. Which, by the way, speaking of mods, Molly gets us the Corn Palace popcorn. And it is delicious, and it pops perfectly. It's nice to meet you. The solar eclipse is on the 25th. The lunar eclipse is on November 8th. Thanks, guys. Molly, I've got the popcorn. It's so good. Right? This is Corn Palace popcorn. It's corn. It has the juices. I love that kid. But yeah. Distracted by Big Doggo. I love that. It really depends on individual charts. When it comes to surgeries and stuff, don't listen to pop astrologers when it comes to surgeries. Medical astrology is a very vast, complex, detailed subject, and most people haven't bothered to put in the time. There's a lot of rhetoric, and it's not all true. So, nice. I remember being 43. 53 is even better, I promise. I can't answer your questions about the corn. Molly will, though. I don't. She buys it for me. And it was a gift. Oh, well, I have that particular habit. I mean, some of it, there's effects here on TikTok, but I do look young because I have Venus in Gemini, so, but yeah. And good genes. It is. It's super good. Hey, Sister Luck. Thank you, Molly. Yeah, so there's a lot going on. Yeah. Oh, there's usually a lot of Libras in my audience. My moon is like a candle to the, candle lit for the Libras. So yeah. I don't really try to guess people. My mind is always working in astrology. I don't guess their placements. I see their placements. So when you're talking to me, like if I meet somebody, I can hear their placements talking. And then I'll go look it up. I'll be like, I hear Virgo. But I don't do everybody I meet's chart. Like, that's like asking a doctor to do medicine on everybody they meet. I used to when I was younger, but I don't have time for that now. Yeah. Everybody could use a break. Pluto remains in Capricorn until 2024. The whole world is going through it. I know these things are difficult, but it's part of being human. And I know it's hard, but it's part of being human. It's part of life on the planet. And we're in a time of change, We're in a time of profound change, and that can be hard to navigate amongst personal circumstances. But these are the things we're here to experience. We're here for it all. Good, bad, gritty, easy. Nobody has an easy life. Nobody. So, and I think that's something really important to understand. Like one of the most important lessons I learned in my life, and I'm just speaking for me personally, and astrology helped me with that, was to stop identifying with the trauma. Because it's easy to make it our identity. And that's something I did as a younger person, especially in my 30s. And that is the most regrettable thing I ever did, because it held me up for a long time. I did a lot of healing work. You can get stuck in that, I'm healing. And then, where are you going from there? And that's one of the mistakes that I think we all can do, and we can all learn from. So as we go along. So it is uncomfortable to be human most days. And we're in for a lot of change. But the air signs get big breaks when Pluto moves into Aquarius. So thank you. It's my pleasure to give it. I try to do my best. That's all one can do. and really that's all we can do is the very best. And sometimes our best is good enough, and some days it absolutely isn't. But we can't own that either, because, all we have is the present moment. That's it. Like, the past is the past. The future isn't here yet. We got this. So every moment, it's a good moment to say, what am I going to do with this? Have a conscious choice. What am I going to do with this moment? It doesn't mean other things don't hurt, or the past doesn't hurt, or not at all. Not at all. But if you allow yourself to be robbed of your present, it's unfortunate. So, yeah. Huh. No, I don't think we'll see more people becoming accepting of astrology. I honestly don't care if more people are accepting of it. It goes in waves. People accept it, don't accept it. Sorry, hair. But, yeah, it could go a couple ways. We could be made illegal again, because that happened. That's one of the reasons I'm very outspoken. And I'm very political. One, I was a political analyst before I was ever an astrologer, but also because if you allow QAnon bullshit to be the voice out there, that is how metaphysical practices became illegal after World War II. During the Depression and World War II, there were people who used these very kinds of conspiracy theory bullshits to prey on people and commit fraud. And that's why I'm very vocal. It does not get in the way of my forecasting. Okay, that's a different thing. I step back from that. But I will be very vocal in public. That's important. But I do think we'll see one of the greatest awakenings of all time. Because I think people had a political and social awakening. I don't really think people had deep spiritual awakenings just yet. I think that's yet to come. Because basically all people did was swap one belief system for another. They didn't really question anything, So just wait. Right. Well, I wouldn't call all of it New Age spiritualism. There's some New Age stuff that is very much anti-Semitic. And there's some stuff that isn't. It all gets lumped in. I think what I like is that I heard things are being called personal transformation. I think I like that term a lot better. Because New Age was co-opted from some writings that aren't quite accurate. You have to kind of be able to read history in context, and most people don't have that training. I was trained in the counter magic to the Nazis. So a lot of my teachers when I was a young woman, they actually did pretty heavy magic against the Nazis in World War II and in the 30s. And so I was actually trained in a lot of that. And one of the things you don't do is you don't ever kowtow or try to appease that kind of energy. And I think I've been outspoken against evangelicalism for a long time, and others, and I think that we've kowtowed too much. We don't want to make, they have their freedom. They have their freedom inside of their church. They don't have that freedom out in amongst the rest of us. Okay. They want to keep it all together. That's fine. Keep out of our lives and our business. And I think if we're not very vocal, then we're taking their side. And with Pluto coming in Aquarius, if you are not vocal, then you are being permissive of this other energy you may not want. Spirituality shouldn't be political. Bullshit. It always has been. The only time it was ever actually separated was the U.S. Constitution. That's the first time in history. But as far as astrology goes, we've always been involved in politics, because who did we work for? And who do we still work for? I still work for people who have political campaigns or are in political office. I don't talk about who my clients are because I respect privacy. Like, why would people work with me if they can't trust me? Oh, yeah, the lizard people. Yeah. That's been around forever, though. The QAnoners just co-opted it. That's from, like, the Nazi playbook, but yeah. Yeah, a lot of it. And the idea of if you're more conscious that you're somehow not human, how does that make any kind of sense? But yeah. Hey, how you doing? But yeah. So for the people who don't like that I'm political, they don't have to like that. They can go listen to somebody else, but understand the ramifications for not having principles and standing on your principles. There will be dire consequences moving forward, especially during the Pluto and Aquarius age. So you want very clearly to have it known where you stand. So. Aw, thanks. I figure the people who like it will stay. So, no. And again, I don't let it stand in the way of my analysis. If I think, when I look at something and I'll be like I looked at Stacey Abrams' charts. Politically, I'd love her to win. It's a contentious election. And if she does not concede and she fights because it looks like there's voting irregularities, she might win and we might hear about it in December. But there's a real issue that she may not. So it's kind of like a 50-50 on that. If she fights, she could win and be governor. So, but I don't think if she concedes, she concedes. I hope she doesn't, because if she fights, she'll win that. But yeah. You keep seeing spiders. Well, it always means something when we see things that get our attention. And so it depends on what kind of mythology that you adhere to, what makes more sense to you. To me, spiders are protective. They take care of pests. They might be a warning of saying, hey, clean up around here. They could be, you know who you should go follow Asanabi. Go follow Asanabi and ask him about spiders. He can give you the Native American, the indigenous peoples version of that story, which is really beautiful, but it's not my story to tell. So, yeah. Thank you, Casey. But, yeah. Ooh, you dreamt of the Eye of Horus. Cool. That's awesome. What's the magical day? October 18th. We have Venus trine Mars. I'll be giving a special talk about that for my patrons on Friday. So I just sent out the invitation, mostly to make up for being a little slow on things over the last week or so. The energy's been heavy for me too. And I needed to readjust things. So, yeah. Very magical day with Venus trine Mars. You don't really have to do a whole lot with it. It might be subtle. It might be subtle energy. That's why I was telling some stories, talking about the subtleness of things, that sometimes it's just like you've been seeing spiders all the time. They're getting your attention. That's kind of subtle, right? Sometimes it's maybe you're walking through a library and a book gets your attention. Just for some reason, your vision just gets very clear on that singular thing. Sometimes we take the wrong exit and it puts us on a road we need to be on like 6 months later. And you're like, oh yeah, I was here that time, so yeah. Well, there's always lots of astrology going on. So yes, it does happen before the Scorpio new moon. So yeah. Yeah, Saturn stations direct after it does that so we have the Venus trine Mars on the 18th. We have Saturn stationing direct on the 23rd, and then we have the new moon eclipse, which we really need to, treat like just a new moon because it's not visible in the United States. So, No. No. It's 8:44 my time. Other signs you might see, just double numbers, triple numbers. Some people call them angel numbers. I call them synchronistic. So I like us to understand how powerful we are. How powerful are you? Instead of giving your power away to entities and deities and everything except yourself. Yeah, that's a tool of oppression. We co-create. We are equal in this process. We are a part of and with, not separate from. So. Oh, your boss emailed you at 11:11, dude. That's fun. Seeing 2s and 4s. Somebody saw 444. Yeah. The solar eclipse is not visible. You have to say this correctly. The solar eclipse is not visible. We always feel lunar transits, and the moon will be in Scorpio or over the top. We will see that. We will not be, the eclipse will not be visible in the United States. And that's a good thing, because this is a shift in power dynamics. And it's mostly seen in Eastern Europe, Ukraine, and Russia. I'll be giving a talk about that next week. You can register for that. The link is in the bio. If one of the mods would put the discount code for that. I'll be talking about the eclipses in depth, what I think it means for the world, and what I think it'll be doing for you. So, yeah. Yeah, the mind is a very powerful thing. So are our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our toes, our ears. It's all powerful. Being here is powerful. So, yeah. How do I recommend to get over someone you have 4 Scorpio placements? Oh, and you keep thinking about the past. That's a cross to bear as a Scorpio, isn't it? With Scorpio placements. I'm going to be a little harsh. People are not possessions. People are not possessions. Would you want to catch a bug and put it in a jar and not put any airway in it and keep a lid on it? No. Right? Make it squirm? No. People are not possessions. You have a life to live. You are not a possession. They are not a possession. That love is, if it was love, it's not dead. It still exists, because energy does. You get up, you do your day. But if you keep hooked on them, it's a defense mechanism against ever having relationship with other. And that's what it is. I'm a Scorpio rising. I get it. I get it. But people are not possessions. You're not one. They're not one. We're not meant to be owned. And that's what most people treat relationships like. When you look at the average, what's out there, not the exceptional, not the phenomenal, but the average, the basic. What do people do? They try to own each other. There's a lot wrong with that. My man, my woman. It's like, whoa, everybody trying to tell each other how to live and how to be. And I'm not saying you did that. But when we try to own and possess other, it is out of fear. And that is not love. So sometimes we do have to love and let go. And it's hard. It hurts. It hurts. I know. I have lost hard. But at the end of the day, I didn't really lose. It felt like it for a while. For a long while. But yeah. 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 We can love many people over the course of a lifetime. Each love and appreciation is for that person. It takes nothing away from anyone else. Like, my beloved, we're both older. I'm in my 50s. He's in his early 60s. We've been with other people. We've loved other people. That doesn't take away from us. It shows you have the capacity to love. But the people who are jealous of exes and what have you, they're exes. If they were anything else, they'd still be in there, you know. And are we meant to just have this one thing, one person? I don't think so. I think it's control, especially when we're looking at women, okay? As women, we get, like, we're told our value is related to being, like, coupled with someone else, having a partner. Like, oh no, I'm an old spinster. What will I do? That's social control. It's not fair to you either. Yeah. Oh, it's nice you can do that. I can't stay friends with exes. Of course, one of mine is around, but they're dead. So I get the better part of them around. So they're mostly around the kids, though. Yeah. Absolutely. You can love you love people as individuals, you know. But yeah, it's hard when we lose people. We lose them in lots of ways, but we don't really lose that love. We can look back fondly. But, you know, it depends on how long it's been. If it's fresh, it's fresh. Thank you. Okay. I am a demisexual sapiosexual. I hear you. I don't think we always need to be coupled either. I don't think that's normal or natural. I think we are not necessarily, and I'm not necessarily, I'm not polyamorous because that would not work for me. Not that I judge it at all, by the way, but I know it wouldn't work. It would just be too much. I don't have the patience for all the communication that polyamory requires. I'd be like, fuck, get over it. You know, it'd be like the drama that gets, I've had a lot of friends in polyamorous relationship. I'd be like, oh my God, that's a drama nightmare for me. But it doesn't mean it's bad. But I just don't think we're necessarily meant to be monogamous and always in partnership with the same people. You grow. Hopefully you're growing. Now, if that partner can grow with you, brilliant. But aren't you like new people, right? If you don't have people who are willing to grow, then it's okay to move on. Different people, different seasons of life. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Right? That part, right? Oh my God, the communication. And I like to communicate, but I see some things that I'm like, I also look to who is it benefiting? Is it mutually beneficial or is one person getting more benefit out of it? I'm all about the fairness side of things. I bet that was a lot. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. As we grow, and that can happen with friendships as well as romantic relationships. There's seasons in life. You know, it doesn't even mean when you outgrow someone, there's anything wrong with them. It's just maybe you're at different speeds. Maybe your interests have changed. It's okay. It's really okay. Yeah. Well, healthy partnerships would be nice, wouldn't they? I have one. It's not worth settling, though. You know. No. I have a great boyfriend now. Took forever. And we don't cohabitate. We might someday, but we don't. I'm perfectly fine not. You know, I like my own company. Oh. Yeah, that would be weird. Yes, there is only one date left of the eclipse seminar. It's a one-day event. Absolutely. There will be a recording sent out, though. So if you can't make it, the recording will get sent out. Do I have any recommendations on resetting your life? It's dependent on your chart. I'm only laughing because I've blown up my life. So, a couple times. I don't recommend it. But the last time was in 2016. I was 47. I just blew it. I was like, damn it. I'm not going to get anywhere doing life like this. Time to blow it up. Don't do that. I'm also an experienced astrologer and I knew what my transits were. So, but if you want to reset your life, moving isn't enough. It's not about the move. It's not about the job. You got to reset inside yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to repeat your old habits. So work on you. Do I have Aquarius placements? No, I do not. I do not. I am a Cancer Sun and Mercury, Cazimi in the 9th house. I'm a Scorpio rising. I have a Sagittarius Mars in the 1st house. But I do have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct at 0 degrees Libra. Like I said, I can't avoid being weird. And I have a Libra moon. Those are all in the 11th house. My Saturn is in Taurus in the 6th house. Jupiter. My Venus is in Gemini in the 8th house. And my Pluto is in Virgo, conjunct the South Node in the 10th. So, yeah. Right? A lot of people didn't see 2016 coming. I knew if I didn't blow things up, it was going to take me out. So it was take action or get taken out. So I took action. I wasn't ready. So yeah. 111. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 2010. Well, 2010 was kind of brutal. My grandma died that year. 2010 was hard. I wanted to do it in 2010. I just couldn't. I had too many other things going on. 2016 was kind of like the last chance. I had lots of opportunities before that, but I was being responsible. All those things we do in life, right? Where we decide to be the good guy and be responsible and self-sacrificing. By the way, that's all the biggest bunch of bullshit on the planet. People will say you're selfish no matter what you do anyway. Because people say you're selfish when you're not doing what they want. That's when they go like, that's when I'd be really careful about using the term narcissist. Because half the time, because if you've ever dealt with an actual real narcissist, you know. But 90% of people will be like, especially, I'm sorry, but when people are like, my mom's a narcissist, is it because she said no? Is it? I'm not talking about the real ones, but there's times I'm like, because when you stop giving people what they want, you decide to take care of yourself, you suddenly become the most selfish woman in the world. Ask me how. It was all fine when you were pretty much killing yourself for everybody. Is that ringing a bell for anyone? Yeah. When all the planets are all on one side of the chart, it just talks about, like, when you're a reflection of the astrology of the time, right? That's where the planets were. They were all bunched up. But it doesn't mean there isn't energy throughout the chart. There are no empty spaces in the chart. There are apparently empty spaces. So that's stuff I teach in my classes, and I'll be getting a class up for November. So stay tuned and follow me, and you'll get more information. But it just depends on which side, you know. So some people have a lot on top. Some people have a lot on the bottom. You know, mine are kind of spread out. So, which is actually rarer than having them glooped up. But I like to call it a conga line, because 9 times out of 10, it's not an actual stellium. Very rarely is it a real stellium. There's a lot of people who just regurgitate information and it's not. And then they think, like, I'll ask people, they'll come to me for a reading, like, well, tell me about my stellium. And I'm like, what does stellium mean? And why do you want to know? Why? What's important about it? Like, what does it actually mean to have one? Well, I don't know. People just say it's important. There you go. That's not a good enough reason. I can satisfy the curiosity, though. But I just want people, use your noodles. Use the noodles. Use your critical thinking. It's so important. Yeah, and I get it. You don't get the information. That's why I'm here. That's why I teach. So, yeah. You're welcome. It appears, when I said it looks empty, it appears. It's only apparently, or it only looks empty. There is a lot of energy there. I promise. I promise. Appears means to look. Yeah, I'll have my classes up in November again. I needed a little bit of a break, so I'm just doing a couple seminars. So. But yeah. But yep. Now, if you guys want readings, I have 2 astrologers that I've certified to do natal readings. You can find them linked in my bio. And I do the transfer readings and consultation readings. So those are there. Casey is one of those. McDubbs is another. We'll have Jennifer and Rita following suit, probably in November. I'll probably have a video on it somewhere, but it's actually 3 personal planets or more. But it's not outer planets. Half of you guys that watch me will be like, I have Uranus and Neptune in Aquarius, or I have Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn. Everybody your age does. It's not an accomplishment. Those are outer planets. Just like everybody born in like the 60s and into the 70s has Neptune and Pluto sextile. It's not an accomplishment. It's an outer planet configuration. So it's just a generational thing. So, and I say that with all the nerdiness I can give. I'm a nerd. So, thank you guys. I use 8 degrees. I'll go to a 6. I don't like 10. It's too wide. I'll give a 10 to Lunation or to Neptune. I don't do Hellenistic astrology either. So it is not traditional. It is an interpretation of traditional. But you can't do 100%. Like, there are certain things I've taken from it. I like the use of houses. I use Placidus, but the interpretation of the house's environment is very important. But the whole Hellenist is traditional. It's not. It's not. It is a translation of a dead language and a dead culture. You cannot, those are very fluid things. And so we can't know exactly how they meant things. I don't care how good somebody is at ancient Greece, ancient Greek as a language. It doesn't mean it is translated as intended or as used by that culture. So that's something that's really, really important to understand. So I think there's some really interesting things out of the studies. I was a young astrologer when Project Hindsight was starting, and I've studied with Robert Hand, and he was one of the people very involved. So, but I'm a classically trained astrologer, not a fan of the stuff out of the 60s either, so I think there's a point on that, but so there we go. I always recommend astro.com to make your site, but AstroSeek is good too. Astro.com is good. I've had a login there since the year they started, 96. But AstroSeek is accurate too. Oh, you're welcome. The chart is not a big deal to make. We have software. Casting it by hand takes time and practice because math. But learning to interpret your chart, and this is where people misunderstand it. Learning to read a chart takes a while. You're learning a language. Hey there, how are you? How's it going? So, yeah. Wow. So it takes time. I have Astro Guides linked in my bio. If you want to know how to find your clairs, I have one on instinct and intuition and understanding what that is. It's the Astro Guide Volume 1, Issue 2. Oh. The mods are putting out a poll. Thanks for doing it. The Astro Guide Volume 1, Issue 1, I call it the ultimate cheat sheet, but it is a great primer on astrology and understanding what astrology actually is, as well as the components, so that you have something to refer to when you're looking at your chart. And then we've got the guide to Chiron, because I think Chiron is another misinterpreted placement. So, yeah. What do you do if a planet appears on the cusp of two houses in your birth chart? It can appear that way, but we have math, my friend. What is the degree and minute of the house cusp, and what is the degree and minute of the planet? It could be 12 degrees and 39 minutes for the house cusp, and 12 degrees and 37 minutes for the planet. Guess what? It'll be in the other house. It's not on the line, but it is what we call applying to the other house. So it's in, let's say that cusp is the 5th house, right? So it's in the 4th, applying to the 5th. And I go over that when I teach astrology classes. That's a very good question, and that is very important things to know. Remember, a good astrologer doesn't need to see the wheel. We can just look at a list of planets and the house degrees. Okay, because we do the math, with experience, we do the math in our head. So, whoops. Uh-oh. There we go. Ah. You're welcome. So degrees are in general not divinatory, okay? 0 degrees holds all the potential. 29 holds the maturity, and it is not exhausted. I don't know who made that bullshit up. It's probably medieval, but I don't think people quite understand what that term would even mean from a medieval perspective. So I just would like to point out, in the Middle Ages, the word nice meant you were a prostitute. Just saying. So see how language does change. Venus and Gemini here. I got you. So... You're welcome. The degrees are directional. Your birth chart is a map of the sky. It's a map of the sky. And we have longitude and latitude. Every degree. Okay, so every sign has 30 degrees. Every degree has 60 minutes. That's what it means. And that's why you guys aren't really learning astrology. If you do, that's beginning astrology. That is where you start. You know, that's where we start. And so because we have so much information available, and it's not your fault, it's just we have so much of information available, people don't start, they kind of start in the middle somewhere, and that's where it gets all wonky and confused. And that's where things like degree theory come up, and they're like, oh, these degrees have meaning. No, they not divinatory wise. They're directional. And we have decans which show maturity and influence, but it's not like, oh, this degree makes you this way. Again, that's trying to force everybody into these little boxes, and human beings are not meant to be forced into boxes. All right? That is the same type of attitude that doesn't allow for like animals to be sentient. That's the same type of attitude that doesn't recognize that we are very instrumental here on the planet. We are not here to be in dominion of it, but we are here to be in concert with it. So when you make things that divinatory, I'm not against divination. I do predictive work all the time. But the way I use degrees, it's directional. That's how I'm able to tell you this region's going to have an earthquake or this region's going to have a storm. That's what those mean. Yeah. What? I did a career life path, and you said that October 9th there's going to be a misalignment. Oh, okay. Sometimes there's a hiccup, and so that hiccup can lead to better things. So it happened, huh? How's it going now? See, I don't just tell people pretty words. Sometimes I give them a heads up if I see there's a problem. I'm eating my popcorn and waiting. How you guys doing? Magical day, October 18th. Oh, you're trying not to obsess. Oh, big hugs, honey. Of course I know about MBTI. I'm college educated. Yeah. I'm not a fan of that either. Oops, hang on. Oh, you had a popcorn too? Oh. Moon and Gemini tonight. Moon and Gemini tonight. Tonight. But late. I think it's close. But my software is on this phone, so I can't peek at it really quick. But it'll be a little bumpy. Depends on who you are. It's not as crunchy bumpy as it has been. But it will be a little bit, because especially on the 14th when the moon conjuncts Mars, it'll be easy for people to kind of pop off or take offense easily and clap back. And just watch your blood pressure. Don't doom scroll. Don't road rage. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's close. There we go. Hey, it's popcorn night. Oh, also Saturday night, we're watching Dogma in the Discord. If you haven't seen Dogma, well, you will. It's got Jay and Silent Bob. It has Ellen Rickman. Alanis Morissette is God. So we're gonna watch that. We're watching movies throughout October. So, right? I love Dogma. I don't have favorites. If I had to pick a favorite, my very, very favorite movie is The Princess Bride. I could watch that a million times. I love Young Frankenstein. I love Secondhand Lions. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie. It's a beautiful film. But I don't watch a lot of movies. I'm not a big TV or movie watcher. I'm kind of a book reader. So, but yeah. So don't ask me about freaking Lord of the Rings, because I read the books, okay? A little annoyed at the movies. The movies are kind of cool, but I don't know. I felt as hot as Strider was, he was wrong. He was not supposed to be that pretty, and that made me sad. So, just saying. I like old movies. I like really old movies from like the 30s. I love Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Baby with Katharine Hepburn, Adam's Rib, Philadelphia Story, all of those. I don't know. That's kind of like my favorite stuff. Yeah. Yeah, old films. Yeah. Oh, yeah, His Girl Friday. That's a good one. Yeah. Love Katharine Hepburn movies. An American in Paris. I love those. I love, like, musicals. So, like, My Fair Lady, Sound of Music. Those are ones that are just kind of, they make me feel like I'm sitting with my grandma. You pretty much start playing that music and there's a waterworks happen. So, yeah. Yeah. So, and now I don't have time. So, I'm streaming in the Discord on Saturday nights, doing movie nights. Frankenweenie was a really good film, though. That Mujen, our mod. Oh, hey, only about half of you have had a reading. But yeah, so if you want a natal reading, there's a save 70%, or sorry, save 20%, save 20% code. And you can read with Mackenzie or Casey. I've trained them personally. They are phenomenal. I have them look at my stuff all the time. They're very talented. You can book with them. Casey, go ahead and put the code in. They book up pretty fast because they don't read. They keep their schedule kind of short because they have lives and things. But if you want a really accurate natal chart reading, go for it. You can also get a walkthrough by booking in my profile. I need to do recordings. Sometimes if I don't accept it, it'll bounce back to you. You get a refund automatically unless I, accept and deliver. So if you booked one and you didn't have it and you got the money bounced back, just book another one. I'll eventually get to it. But yeah. Yeah. Okay, you got one? All right. If it hasn't bounced back, then I'll get to it. I just haven't had time. Like, to the point of I haven't had time to take them down because I've been busy. But yeah, we'll get to that. I might do some of those recordings because that's in a birth chart walkthrough. I don't go into deets like of your deep personal life. I'm explaining your chart. I might record myself doing those. Would you guys like to see me do a walkthrough? Put like a heart or a thumbs up in the comments if you want to see me record a chart walkthrough. You do? Okay. Maybe I'll do some live. Okay. I can do that. Sure. Cool. Awesome. Nice. Well, guys, cool. I will do that then. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do a live stream in maybe the early afternoon or evening, and I can put it up on YouTube so people get to see it. So yeah. Now remember, patrons, Friday, I'm going over the Magic Day, October 18th, and how you can best make use of that energy. How did I get into astrology? It fell into me. I was like 25. And I landed on a message board online, and I asked a question and somebody answered it. And they said, hey, I just took a look at your chart. You were born to be an astrologer. I'll teach you. And I said, great. I will prove it wrong. And that is how I became an astrologer. So I've been at it a really long time. Anyway, guys, much love. Talk to you later.